Hi, I'm Rachel.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Fred.
And this is Come In 81 Kilo,
a Forever Night podcast.
I haven't gotten to use my button in a while because we finished. All right. So we're talking to Fred Mollin, right?
Mollin.
Okay. Thank you. Fred Mollin, who, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you know exactly who he is, but the music guy for Forever Night, who very generously agreed to be on our podcast. So thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
So I have some questions, which we will go by, but also we might just go rogue. So we'll just see how this goes.
It sounds great.
You're our first interview, Fred. So
all right,
for Forever Night.
For Forever Night, yeah, we do some for other podcasts. But okay, we're dealing with a cat, so he doesn't interrupt our recording.
Oh no, I love kitties. It's okay.
So you're in Nashville?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like that? What do you think? Better than Toronto, or just?
Oh, I mean, when I left TV and film scoring in 2001, which was a decision I had made to. Because I had been burnt to a crisp. I missed making records as a record producer, which I had started doing in my early part of my career. And I felt Nashville was the only place left to do that with live musicians in the studio. And I loved producing other artists and making them sound good. So I moved here in 2001, changed my life again. And I love Nashville because of the musicians and the studios and the life here. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, my niece actually has she's 19, so her boyfriend just moved to Nashville to make it.
He's a drummer in a band.
So I thought, well, you know what? At 19, you should do it. Just go.
It's really on so many levels. There's nothing like Nashville. It's it is literally we're all musicians and singers and everyone. We all gather here. Although it has grown so exponentially over the past 7 years that it's much more of a huge city now than it ever was, but I still love making my records here. It's magical.
Nice. Yeah, I was watching an interview you did, I think about 7 years ago, where you were saying you do quite a bit of. There's only 3 record labels left, so you do quite a bit of independent record producing.
Yeah, I mean, I work for both both 4, or there's really 4 labels left, but
okay.
But there's a lot of smaller labels and a lot of independent artists that I produce. Yeah.
So how did you get your start, just in general? Like, how did Fred start Fred's life?
Well, I grew up in Merrick, Long Island, which is in the South Shore of Long Island, and my musical life started really when the Beatles played Ed Sullivan in 1964. And I was 11 years old, and I sort of realized, because I had been a musical little kid, but I realized I wanted to get a guitar and learn how to sing songs and write songs and try to get girls. So my life changed, literally, like many of my brother and sisterhood. Many people in that situation changed. And we saw a direction to go. And my direction, even though it did get sort of changed here and there, was always musical. And so initially I started as a singer-songwriter. I had bands. I quit school when I was 16 to pursue music more seriously, and then wound up in Toronto at age 17, again, making a life in music as a musician and singer-songwriter. And soon after, I think around 1973, so I had been in Toronto probably for a year or so, I was playing a lot of club gigs as a singer-songwriter, and I got asked to produce a demo for an artist named Dan Hill, who I was playing a lot of gigs alongside of. And I was like, well, yeah, I can produce this. I mean, I knew a lot about records, but I didn't have any experience as a producer. So we produced a little demo. The demo turned into a record deal. And very shortly after, we had hits in Canada. And my whole career changed because I started to like my life behind the camera as opposed to having to be an artist. I liked being the person who made artists sound good. And so I liked my work as a musician and an arranger and a producer. And a producer, record producer, is really a director.
Yeah.
And I sort of liked that. And next thing you know, we had hits in Canada. And then, my life changed and I did other things as well. But in 1977 into 78, we had a song that we produced called Sometimes When We Touch, which
I have heard of that one.
well, I think it is actually one of of the top 200 songs of airplay.
Wow.
So we were very fortunate. We had a huge hit, and I was very young, and that catapulted me to LA for a couple of years to produce for Clive Davis. And I'm just going to give you a very quick recap, and then moved back to Toronto, which had been my adopted home, and I became a Canadian early on, and so I was a dual citizen. And my wife and I, at that point, we moved back in 81. We had our children in 84 and 87. And between 81 and 83, 84, my career as a record producer wasn't doing so well, but I started to get some work as a TV and film composer. And I had never wanted to do that. But I started, I needed to make a living, so I started to do it. And literally by 85, my work as a record producer was gone, and I was becoming a full-time TV and film composer. And then in 87, I landed some big gigs on the Friday the 13th TV series for Paramount, and My Secret Identity for Universal, and The New Gidget for Columbia. And then you tell me, what was the first year of Forever Night? What was that?
1992.
Okay. And then by that time, I was considered one of Canada's most successful TV and film composers. But because I was an American as well as a Canadian, I was able to sort of really work in both places and also qualify for Canadian content. So all of those years led me to one of my favorite series to score, which was Forever Night.
Well, we're glad you did.
Me too.
So you wrote, and I always found this interesting, some pop songs for Forever Night, the Black Rose, Why Did They All Just Leave Me? I don't know all 7. They just popped out of my head.
There were many. The Night Calls My Name.
Yes, yeah.
Touch the Night. Dark Side of the Glass. Yeah.
Did you write those early on, or were those
requested?
No.
Those were all written for the show.
Okay, I mean, as they popped up in the episodes, or were you like, here's like a catalog of pop music we can use?
No, I wrote all of those songs with Stan Meisner for the show.
Okay, I've always wondered if you were you like, here's like 7 songs we can sample for the next 4 years.
No. I mean, basically, when we saw the that we would need music for the Raven, because my background is a songwriter, record producer, and everything, so it's very easy for me. And what I would do, because I was so busy, I was doing 3 TV series at once.
Wow.
So, and by the way, I don't have people who did my work for me. I did everything myself. So I would call Stan Meisner, who's a dear friend and a great song collaborator.
Someone's at front door.
Who is at the front door? Fine. Let's find out. No one's at my front door ever. Hold on. Where were we? We were talking about Stan. So Stan Meisner and I were great friends. I had produced his first solo album. And then we became great song collaborators because I loved writing lyrics. And he was really good with melodies and chords, as well as producing demos. So when I was so busy in those years, when we saw The Raven, when I saw The Raven, I realized I've got to create sort of a gothic vibe, sort of droney, mysterious rock song, landscape for the Raven. And so I would start to write lyrics. I would send them to Stan. And again, I was so busy that I would just send them I think I would fax it to him, even though he was, he was only 25 minutes away in Toronto.
Yeah.
And then he'd write the music and do the demo, and then we'd hire a singer. And while I was scoring things, he'd be doing the production on those demos. And so things like The Night Calls My Name, or Touch the Night, or Dark Side of the Glass, or what else was there?
Heart to Darkness, I think.
Yeah, Heart of Darkness.
And Black Rose.
Black Rose. So we used Laurie Yates, who was a local rock singer in town. And we used a gal named Molly Johnson, who was a great sort of rock and jazz singer. And, we just gave them the direction. Stan produced those demos and masters, saying, make them sort of, more mysterious. And so, we would get those songs done. And I would deliver those along with my score. And but they were written for the Raven.
I mean, I've always thought that was such a stroke of genius, because then you don't have to deal with licensing rights in perpetuity.
The nice part was they were not part of my contract, so I did license them. But we did license them. At some point, we licensed them in perpetuity. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you end up working on Forever Night? Like, what steps led you to Forever Night?
Well, I'm going to tell you a great story.
Okay. I'm here for it.
And if you have the time, I'll tell you.
Oh, yeah. We have plenty of time.
All right, good. I had been extremely busy and very successful in those years as a TV and film composer. My life had changed substantially, and even though I never felt that I was the right guy, I felt like I did a really good job because I worked hard, and I was trying to make a lot of money for me and my family. And so from the years from 86 till about 2001, I was nonstop, with an occasional foray into record production, but 80% of what I did were nonstop TV and film score. I had an agent in LA, and you said the first year was 92?
Yeah.
So probably sometime in 91, I got a call from my agent, who passed away a few years later from AIDS, sadly. Lovely guy, Wayne Burgos. And I'm in the middle of being very busy, and sort of at my peak, so to speak, of TV and film score. And he called and said, listen, there's a really exciting series that I'd love you to pitch on. He said it's going to be one of these CBS late night shows. And I had already gotten one of them, which was Sweating Bullets, which was a detective series in the tropics. And but he said, I think you'd be great for this one. It's about a vampire cop. And I said, well, this is, I do a lot of this. I'm happy to audition for this. And he said, and on top of it, he said, it's the company you've worked for, which is a company that did a series called Beyond Reality, which I did for 2 years for USA Network, which was about paranormal psychologists who try to solve cases. And I loved that show. And the people involved were a Toronto-based company called 4Point. And Wayne said, well, they're involved in this series. I said, well, and on top of it, it was for CBS, which, by the way, means that the royalties I'd be getting for airplay were about 10 times what regular cable would have been or something.
Oh, wow.
So it was a real big win.
Yeah.
And it was also for Columbia TriStar. So I'm like, man, I'm in. What do I got to do? And he said, well, you got to read the thing. And I read the thing. And they wanted some score pieces and a theme demo. And I did a really cool theme demo and some good score pieces, and sent them in through Wayne, through my agent in LA. And then I found out through John Slan and Richard Borchever, who were the Canadian producers, who I had a relationship with. And they said, listen, we have bad news for you. We said, we pitched you very hard. we said, you're the guy to do this. And the guy who created the show from LA, Jim Parriott, really, he didn't like that. And he said, I'm going to pick the composer. I don't need you to tell me who the composer is. And these guys called me and said, I don't think you have a chance because we can't push back against him. He's very adamant that, just because you're our guy doesn't mean shit to him.
Yeah.
So that was, I was sort of disappointed, but, I was very busy, but I was still disappointed. And I called Wayne, my agent, and I said, listen, I don't even think this guy's going to even listen to my stuff, so I'm not even going to put it in. And Wayne said, Fred, I believe in you, no matter what they're telling you. Finish the demo and get it to the company. And so I finished the demo because I hadn't actually sent it to them yet. And after Wayne gave me a pep talk, I sent it to them. I didn't hear anything for about a week and a half. And then my friend Stan Meisner, who I wrote the songs with, called to say, hey, my friend Clive was at the Sutton Place Hotel in Toronto, which at that point was like the real cool hang for all the people who were making TV and film in Canada. And they'd all wind up in the bar there. And he said, Clive was talking to someone at the bar who's doing a vampire cop show. And Clive told me when he asked who's doing the music, the guy said, this guy, Fred Mollin. So this is all now broken telephone as far as I'm concerned. It's like a rumor,
Yeah.
Right.
But obviously I got a little excited, Well, it turned out to be true. The next day I got a phone call from Richard Borchiver at Four Point, Paragon at that point. They called themselves Paragon at that point. At Paragon. And Richard said, Jim Parriott wants to meet with you. He loved your demo. So
Wow.
I give Jim so much credit because he was so dead set against me. But when he heard my stuff, he said, this is the right guy.
Yeah, that's hard to do, to go back from never, I'm not that guy, and then like, all right, well, he actually did the best
Exactly.
job. Yeah.
For him to go to, I don't want you to tell me who to use, and getting an attitude, to basically, you're right, he's great, which is what they said he said.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden now I'm doing this series, and Jim and I became great friends, and still to this day are great friends. And it was 3 seasons of episodes that are probably my most favorite years of scoring television and film. I loved everyone involved. I became great friends with many, including Gare. And it was just magical. It was a magical combination. It was hard work, but it was a magical combination.
So what resemblance did the theme that you sent when you sent your pitch theme, actually, how much of that ended up in the actual theme for the show?
All of it. I actually, I did the demo, and Jim said, I like it the way it is.
No, well, that's good.
So actually, all I did was remix it.
Oh, nice. I mean, how did you end up at that? Like, we love the theme, but how did you end up there? You heard Vampire Cop and you were like, okay, I've got it.
I mean, I think I must have seen some footage or read a script or something, but
okay.
I thought a bombastic bottom might be fun, and I just built on that.
And it works so well. It works so well with the voiceover because it gives
which I didn't know was going to happen, but I like the voiceover.
Yeah. So was it different working on the show from season to season because they ended up moving around so much?
Well, we were sort of an orphan. We lost the CBS thing, and then USA picked us up, and then, but it was all like we didn't know if we were going to be renewed every year. It was a little bit disconcerting, but I think we had such a united front as a team that I don't really remember anything except the fun of it.
Yeah. So did you create all the musical elements yourself? So you sent me some tapes, and they have the unscored versions, which were very interesting to watch, by the way. The ones that were not taped over with anime, Turner Classic Movies. And a
I
couple other.
cannot control my kids because they were doing shit, you know.
You know what? I don't mind because there's so many 90s commercials, and the fun of watching the 90s, I was like, you know what? I can't be mad.
Well, what I'm worried about is that my 13-year-old son was taping porn.
Well, I will let you know.
Yeah.
So far, anime is the chief.
Well, listen, my son lives in Tokyo because of that obsession. So.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, it was one I had never seen, so I actually may watch it on my own.
There you go. Yeah. I'm sorry. So you're saying, did I? What was your question? Did I create?
Yeah, we got off track. So you gave me the one. So what? I guess you were trying to describe it to me. They sent you the unscored tapes, and then you scored them, and I guess gave them time codes.
Well, I mean, for all the TV series I did and movies, you get a visual time code.
Yeah.
And hopefully a locked edit of the movie or TV series. The way I would write, I would be staring into my monitor with my keyboard, and I'd be improvising to the picture, and then I'd roll it back, and I'd improvise some more, then I'd lay something down, then I'd lay something else down, and eventually I'd be, overdubbing and layering all this different things until I had the right combination of sounds and synths and samples. And then at night, my crew would come in and take all the multi-track ideas I had, not ideas, the multi-track scoring I did, put them onto a 24-track tape, and then the next day I would go, while they worked all through the night, then the next day I would go and mix the show with my music engineer, combining all the tracks that we had that I had written, which they had put to tape. So I played every instrument, every sound, except for maybe occasionally an electric guitar lead or something, which I had Stan do.
That's really wow.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that was a question later on, which is like, this is before digital. So what did you do?
Well, it wasn't before digital because a lot of the synthetics I was using were digital samplers and stuff. But it was certainly before digital computer recording like Pro Tools. So we did, like I said, I would go to sleep, and I had my studio in my house, and my family and I would go to sleep, and my two guys would come in to my studio, and they would take all of my tracks, lay them on to a 24-track tape, audio, analog tape, and then I'd go the next day and we'd mix those onto, some sort of digital tape, which then would get delivered to the film mix, and the music elements were the ones that I would deliver. But I was, I'm a drummer, an acoustic guitar, and electric guitar player who had to become a proficient keyboard player and also a proficient person with synths and samplers so that I could really do what this job was. I mean, and again, I want both of you to know I had no interest whatsoever in being a TV and film composer, especially one who had to play everything themselves, But it was really about the fact that I needed to make a good living, and the opportunities were given to me, and I ran with them.
Yeah. And
you were good at it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of people end up in unusual places in their profession that way, just sort of chasing the rabbit hole of, okay, here's my next opportunity. And then maybe sometimes you get so far down where you're like, you know what, maybe I didn't love this direction, which I guess you did in 2001. And then,
right.
I
had done it for so long, so intensely on my own, from 85 till 2001, that I was so done.
Yeah, especially if it's like in your office in your house, like you never.
Yeah, it's analogous to a fastball, major league fastball pitcher hitting a certain age and realizing they don't have their fastball anymore.
Yeah,
and I'm like, you know what? I want to go back to making records. So
yeah, I feel like you hit a really good moment in television.
I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we love 90s TV. That's pretty much all we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a good moment for synthesizer score, for kind of that, I don't know. The thing we love about Forever Night is that kind of like Wild West. Like there's obviously a bunch of people who love this show who are all working on it, and not this major studio where it's just a sea of people. who were all contributing. All right, so your favorite episode to score, or maybe at this point, just an episode that stood out so much you still remember it.
You know what? Here's the thing, Rachel, and Matt. I have to tell you that I did so much work in those years that my memory of each episode is very cloudy, because literally we're talking 3 days a week.
Yeah.
I would write that score and record it and play all the instruments and go to the next show or whatever series I was doing. And it's impossible to remember, but there were highlights, of course, you know. I remember one piece of score I wrote for an episode called Avenging Angel. And I remember I really loved it because it was just a 3-minute piece, and I begged them to turn the sound effects off when they mixed it and just make it a surreal musical and visual moment. So I love that. I have very strong memories of the last episode because there was so much emotion, emotion from the team. And by the way, again, we became a great team of people. I would go to the set all the time, and we would hang and have a lovely life as team members together. And that was unusual because a lot of the TV series I did, I would never spend any time on the set. But with Forever Night and Friday the 13th, the series, I was on the set a lot. And we really became a great team on both of those series. But I remember last night, which was the last episode. First of all, I remember the pressure that I had to write the final score piece, which was, I guess, the death of Nick.
Yeah.
And
allegedly.
Allegedly. Well, we were hoping it was going to be allegedly, but apparently it was, because at that point we were thinking, oh my God, it'll be a dream sequence and we'll come back next season or something. But it never did. So the pressure that I had on myself was a lot. But I remember writing the last cue and really being proud of it, like really saying, because I think I suck on so many levels compared to the great TV and film composers like John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith and Dave Grusin and Thomas Newman and all these people. I'm nothing. I'm just a period on a page. But I felt like I did a really good job for the people I worked for. But I felt like that last cue on last night was one of my best cues. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Ashes to Ashes and Last Night are some of my favorite episodes. So
Ashes that had a lot of music. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of my favorite episodes. I was so excited Matt had no idea how it was going to end. I managed to keep it a secret for 2 years.
See, I don't remember a thing about the episode, but I remember there was a lot of music.
Ironically, my next question is about Avenging Angel, so that's really funny. I was cool. Avenging Angel is the scene you're talking about is close to the end, and it's where he's driving. Correct. And we just get the music because it's this moment where he's kind of letting someone do something illegal. Yes. And we talk about it quite a bit in the episode that we did on Avenging Angel. But what it led me to ask was, how much creative control did you have over the score? And
well, I think one of the nice things, Rachel, is that when you are the composer for a long period of time on a series, once the series gets going, they really just let you do what you do, and they trust you because they've liked what you've done, and after a while you've sort of set a style and set a thing, and so once Forever Night went into the 3rd or 4th episode, no one listened to a thing I did until it was mixed on the floor. So I had complete creative control.
Well, I'm sure that was reassuring. Like, oh no, Fred, you got this. It's okay.
Well, but that's what we would do. When I would do long-term series, once you've got or just any series, once you got past the 2nd or 3rd episode, everyone was busy and they would just say, "Hey, go do your thing," And maybe occasionally someone would call and say, "Hey, they want to change that one cue," but that on Forever Night that never happened.
So you kind of answered this already, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you still keep in touch with anyone from the show?
Well, Jim is still a Facebook friend, although I haven't spoken to Jim probably in about 4 or 5 years. But we did keep up a great friendship up until probably a few years before COVID. Same thing with Gare. I always loved hanging with him in later years, but I haven't spoken to him in about 5 years as well. And as far as the rest of the team and actors, some of them are Facebook friends of mine, and we keep in touch a little bit. But I would say, at the moment, no, not keeping in close touch.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 30 years, so.
But I really, literally, I miss them and I love them. They're great.
We just met Gare last year. We went up to Stratford and saw a play that he was in.
Yep.
And waited outside the door. I lost my mind, and I don't actually remember what I said to him, but Matt was there, and he says that we did okay.
Well,
I was like, I have a podcast. Like, it was awful, but it's fine. It's fine.
Well, he's just a great guy.
Yeah, he was very nice. And we actually met Kathy. We drove down to Orlando and saw her at a convention. And
Kathy Disher?
Yeah. Catherine
How is
Disher.
she doing?
She was very, very lovely. Like, I really enjoyed meeting her. And she lives in Toronto now. And she's done so much work for the Hallmark Channel. And I love to see people stay successful. And we just met John Kapelos in New Jersey. So we've been on a Forever Night tour. I have a poster.
And again, John and I got along famously. I loved Nigel. Nigel was great fun. He was terrific to hang with. I loved them all. I'm gonna say. I mean, it really was. That's what I'm saying. I probably had more. It was more of a positive experience on that series than any series I ever did, and I just loved. I loved being appreciated by them, and I appreciated them so much.
So I was poking around, and I found an interview from 1997 that you did. And I found one line really interesting where you're talking about how there was a complete lack of merchandise for the show, like merchandise and advertising. And so my question was, if you could have one piece, like if you could have them make one piece of merchandise from the show, what would it be?
Oh, I don't even know. No, I don't know. I have to think about. I actually, sort of, I have a fund for my kids because even though they're 40 and 37, my daughter lives in LA now with her 2 kids and her husband, and frankly, they can use some extra money, so I constantly sell off stuff and give it to them. And I had some merch. I mean, I had crew merchandise.
Yeah.
Like I had, jackets and hats and T-shirts and sweatshirts and that kind of stuff. So but I know I don't need anything and I can't think of it.
Well, I just thought it'd be fun to ask.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Yeah.
Rachel's wearing a shirt she designed.
Yeah, my CERK. You probably can't see it. Home of the Nightcrawler.
Yeah, that's the radio station. Yeah.
Yeah, we have some. This isn't a plug for my merchandise, but we do have some.
And obviously, you've seen the blooper reels and everything, right? So yeah.
Yeah, you can find them online. So I've seen a couple. You've moved on and done some other stuff, including for Disney. What was it like working for Disney?
Well, I didn't work for Disney as a TV and film composer. Well, that's not true. I did a series in 2000 before I left scoring called In a Heartbeat for the Disney Channel. It was a terrible series. I hated it. And it'll never be seen again. It was just a piece of dreck. I had, before I left TV and Film Score, I had gotten a call from my friend Jay Landers, who I'd worked with before in the record side of things. And he was now the head of Disney's record label for children. And he said, would you do an instrumental lullaby album for Disney Records? And I was like, of course. I'll squeeze it in. And I took well-known Disney songs as well as some other songs and turned them into very, 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 just almost meditative versions, piano and strings, as an album to put little children to bed. And it was called the Disney Lullaby Album, and it sold over 1 million copies so far.
Wow.
And so I became Disney's most successful instrumental lullaby artist. And I did 6 different albums for Disney for lullabies. But then in 2006, I got an offer to run the label as the A&R person for Walt Disney Records. And so for a year and a half, I did run the label in Burbank and moved there and did that, as well as I did many other albums for Disney of all different kinds of things. But again, this is post scoring. I mean, I didn't go back.
Yeah.
I never went back to film scoring after that, after 2001. Yeah.
You're just done.
Yeah. I mean, it was really, I walked away going, I love making records. I love being with other people and working as a team. And I had decided after 16, 17 years of lonely deadlines, doing everything myself, that I was burnt to a crisp.
Yeah. So if there was a reboot or a reimagining of Forever Night, what do you think that would look like?
Well, I mean, boy, that's a great question. I mean, are you thinking maybe that the same people are in it, but they play older characters? Or are you saying new people?
Well, my joke is always that Gare comes back and plays LaCroix, and then we get a young guy for the, for the Nick character.
Well, I mean, that would be a good way to look at it. I mean, yeah, that maybe Gare does become sort of the the grandfather vampire. And either he leads them or he tries to be destructive, and then we have a new Nick, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, that's the end of my questions for you. Was really my last one was in the interview from 1997. You said you thought Last Night was a good ending for the show. 30 years on, do you still feel the same way?
Well, in retrospect, I think it's a great ending for the show because it never came back. So we sort of,
because it is the end.
We put the stake in the heart,
closure,
so to speak, and it was a pretty severe stake in the heart. So I would have preferred it not to have been that way. Sure.
Well, thank you, Fred, for coming and talking to us.
Oh my God, it's my pleasure. I mean, I get such a kick out of even remembering this stuff. It was such a great time. Yeah,
I mean, obviously, it's still sticking around because somebody made a podcast about it. We did.
Exactly.
Just us.
Exactly. No, you know what? I'm very. It means a lot to me that this particular show has such loyal fans and people who have such a great attachment to it.
Yeah, I just feel like I wish whoever owned the rights would give it some love. Like it feels like an abandoned property, and I hate that for it.
Yeah.
Like I wish we could get an HD release or, literally like a DVD we could buy would be great.
Or even just streaming season 3.
Yeah.
Well, so the DVDs aren't available anymore?
No, the ones that Sony TriStar released were discontinued. And there's one company that releases like a full box set, Mill Creek, I think. Yeah, and they're kind of the like where all TV shows go to die ones where like they're all in cardboard and anyway, so it's just
I think you're right. Sadly, I think we really were an orphan on many levels. But you never know. I mean, again, there's always a possibility that they'll realize they had some serious mojo on this show, and they'll show it some love.
Yeah, that would be nice because I feel like this is a thing that didn't get done again.
Yeah.
Like Forever Night didn't get done. Like a lot of TV shows, they pop up cyclically, every 15 years. Oh, that's like that TV show.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people reference Angel or Moonlight, but I don't think they're the same. Like I don't lump them together. It feels like Forever Night's its own thing.
I think we had a very unique show, and I think it was, there's no question it was a cult item, but I think it had a lot of heart and a lot of.
Yes.
It was a soulful show.
Yeah, we heartily agree. So thank you again, Fred, for coming on. I think we've taken 40 minutes of your time. So
I'm so glad to have done it. I get such a kick out of it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for the tapes. I'm like super excited to watch all of them.
I'm delighted someone who would be able to get a kick out of them got them.
I did have a question about them. Some of them are labeled as the Glen Warren version.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Glen Warren was the Canadian production company.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it was the Canadian production facility.
Okay.
and Glen Warren Productions had a channel called the CFTO and CTV in Canada. So
Okay.
so they ran Forever Night, but I think it's a longer episode.
Okay. Yeah, the crime time after prime time.
Yeah. See, I do remember. See, you're making me remember things. I did have to add a couple of extra scenes of music for the Canadian versions.
Yeah, I think they were like 5-ish minutes longer.
Like 4 minutes longer. Yeah.
Yeah. Because when we were watching it through with Matt, there's a lot of those scenes where like Nick appears to have gone back to his house and he's in his satin pajamas, but he's like on duty.
Yeah.
And it's the like Euro minutes that they just like fluffed in.
Yeah.
I love it.
But that's the thing. When I was looking through the stuff that he brought me, I was like, oh, Glen Warren. So these were the Canadian versions. They were longer. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
anyway. Those were they were very creative times. I'm very fortunate to have had the run on that show. Really do. I feel very fortunate.
Well, we'll let you go, Fred, so you can have a good evening. I guess it's probably about 8 there now.
It's heading towards 8. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to go rescue my kids there over at Grandma's. So.
All right. Well, listen, great to meet you both, and again, I'm very, very grateful that people love the show. Really.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and we're glad you made it so that we could watch it.
My pleasure.
Oh, I was gonna watch. There's one episode, "Dying for Fame." I'm sorry, you were done, and here
I'm not done.
Okay,
carry on.
There's one episode called "Dying for Fame," and it's the like rock star one. It's in season 1, and it's played like a music.
Feels
video.
like a music video, yeah.
And I know you were involved in like the writing and filming of that, but like,
yes,
why?
Why was I involved?
No, I mean, like why does this episode exist? Like, I like it just fine, but it's the most, it's the oddest episode out of all of them. It doesn't have a real flashback.
I have to watch it again. You're talking about things I did 30 years now?
Yeah, well, you'll watch it and you'll be like, oh, okay. And it's kind of like the backstory for all of the pop music that's in The Raven because it introduces the Rebecca
I remember
character.
having to go to the shoots to oversee the stuff with the performance stuff. Wasn't that the one that had Dark Side of the Glass?
Yeah, it's the one where it's the singer and she's written like Fan Kill or something. It's a huge controversy. And so they, of course, they have to go do security, even though they're homicide detectives, but it's fine.
Right.
And it's just I don't know. I like season 1 because it feels so experimental. And that one feels like the most experimental of all the episodes. So I just like every time I watch it, I'm like, I want to talk to whoever made these decisions. So I know how we got here.
Yeah, I mean, I just listen. I think when you do an episodic series, people are constantly coming up with any idea they possibly can, and I just remember I was involved in a lot of the shooting of that, and I remember having to write "Dark Side of the Glass" for a montage or something, and
because
actually that might be my favorite song of the batch,
It's a good song, and it gets really showcased in that episode because instead of having a real flashback, we have these scenes where he's like watching a life on like CRT TVs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember saying to myself, I think we did a really good song here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good episode. I always wonder about that. I don't know because it's so different than all the others. Because season 3 gets weird, but it's weird in like okay, we were trying to be safe way. This was in like let's do something cool way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the first season? I forget.
Yeah, that's season 1. Because Lacroix is dead, but he shows up in that flashback. Yeah, because he's dead for almost season 1. And then...
I would need you to remind me of everything at this point.
Well, it's cool. I know it. It's fine.
Rich,
honestly, I've done so many hours of television score, and
I'm sure they all just blend.
There's not, I'm constantly being written to by fans saying, "You remember in episode 10 of Friday the 13th when so and so did?" I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Well, I have no idea. I mean, there might be like 5 scenes out of 77 episodes that I remember. Everything else was just like, the deadlines were psychotic.
Right. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's streaming on the Roku channel if you want to watch it.
What is?
Forever Night.
It is?
Yeah, only season 1 and 2. Season 3 is a different rights holder, so you can never find it. But season 1 and 2 is streaming.
Wow.
So,
Well, what do you mean it's a different? What do you mean it's a different rights holder?
So season 1 and season 2 are owned by one company, and then season 3 is independent. So you can buy all 3 seasons on Apple, but you can only stream season 1 and 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I love the fact that people still love the show. It's great.
Yeah.
There's a surprisingly lively fan community
Yeah.
still, like Facebook groups and stuff.
Yeah.
The listserv is still running.
Yeah, the email listserv is still running.
What happened to Deb?
Nidell.
What happened to Deb DeShane?
Nobody
knows. Nobody
Really?
knows. Yeah. Yeah, really. Like the Monsters Madness and Mayhem guy, who I think you were on his podcast. He just had Gare on, and he asked him about Deb,
Yeah.
and he didn't know. And he asked Nigel, and Nigel didn't know.
Really?
Yeah, so she just disappeared.
Boy, she was really good in that show.
I know. It was a shame that she...
A travesty.
A travesty that she left.
I'm amazed. I would have thought she would have continued. You know, I know we're just sort of shooting the shit here. I didn't love, the Ben Bass stuff. And
No, we're.
I thought that was really. I thought that was
Yeah.
there. And I remember Gare like not really being thrilled, because it was sort of like, oh, now you have to have another hunky guy,
Yeah.
Right.
No, we're not kind to Ben Bass. In the
Yeah,
podcast.
I mean,
we're not kind to Vashon. Like Ben Bass is, I'm sure, a fine person, but we're not.
No,
kind
I'm
to
sure
that
he's a
character.
fine person, but I remember saying I don't love this character that much, but I still had such a good time that you have to remember when I say I had a good time, I worked so hard and so relentlessly, and I was so well appreciated by these people and considered them to be great friends and great associates that it made the hard work great.
Yeah, it didn't. You didn't hate all the long hours.
I was really lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. That makes a lot of sense. All right, now we will let you go.
Have a wonderful night, and I thank you guys so much.